start a movie, right? With like, well, for our podcast anyways, it's like a food movie podcast, and it starts with like an egg. It's a big egg though, right? That's like a...
Oh yeah, it's largish.
Like those Japanese eggs that we had. Although the outside's like strangely
I think it's
clear.
Fake. It's probably fake. I mean, obviously.
Well, and you know, it is a movie. Well, so we're going to talk about, we just finished watching 2024's The Substance. I mean, we literally just finished watching it maybe less than 5 minutes ago. So yeah, 2024 is The Substance, starring Demi Moore. Man, really good. Demi Moore. Is it Margaret
Qualley?
Qualley?
I don't know. I think maybe Qualley.
Yeah, who we've seen in a number of things now. And
yeah, she's
Dennis
always
Quaid.
been great.
Well, it's like we were saying when we were watching, like she's got a very unique look about her.
Yeah.
Like she has like an attractive look, but in a very like non-traditional kind of look. There's some, like you were saying, there's something like
she
alien
looks
about her.
A little bit alien. She just looks interesting. She doesn't look like anybody else. I don't know how else to say it. Like she just has a really interesting look about her. And
it's kind of funny. Like she's a great costume.
I mean, she's gorgeous, but yeah, she has a very unique look.
Right. So yeah, this movie, man, this will be interesting. There are so many things to talk about in this movie. I think like, let's see what IMDb says. A fading celebrity takes a black market drug, a cell replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. That's
maybe...
That is about as generic.
It's accurate.
It's accurate, but
that doesn't even.
Yeah, it barely scrapes the surface of what this movie is. Man, I have to say, like before we even get going, like this is probably in my top 3 of movies this year.
Yeah.
Like without a doubt. I mean,
it's gonna be really hard to top this late in the game. I mean, for the year,
this kind of just goes to what we've. I mean, you and I have already talked a number of times about this, right? About how like if 1984 was like one of the best years of film, and 1999 is always also debated, which is 25 year anniversary, 40 year of 84. Man, 2024 is going to have to go down as like
it's a contender.
I mean, it's when you're
it's been a big year.
When you're in the moment, I don't think you realize what you have until like after the fact.
Yeah.
But man, with this movie kind of, I mean, we're not even at the end of the year, but with this movie kind of capping out the back end of 2024, holy shit. Like,
yeah, what a ride.
I guess, you know, like a lot of things, I mean, we sort of gave like a very high premise. I think the easiest way to say this movie without spoiling it before we're about to spoil it. Basically just I guess like a once like thriving, I guess celebrity,
like older celebrity.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say it. It's fine.
Well, no. But I guess like I'm trying to, it's interesting because like it is not something that you would see a lot of now because like your Jane Fondas and your,
the like kind of the aerobics.
Right. That era was really my era in the 80s. And so like in the 90s, this kind of like went away.
Yeah.
And was substituted for like, you know, I don't know, like Britney Spears or other things that wasn't necessarily like I don't know, the shift in culture was a little bit different, right? So this movie is very like.
Now remember when Tybo was a thing?
Yes. And it is still a thing, at least in the VHS community. But it's kind of interesting because this is like a fading star. A fading celebrity who is being bullied, I guess you could say, by like what they make it seem like Hollywood or the Hollywood.
Well, the patriarchy, right? Like basically you know, she's past her prime. She's what is it, like her 50th birthday?
She's reaching. Yeah, she's
yeah.
hitting
So
her
they're
50th.
basically like trying to push her out because you know,
Right.
we gotta get the youngest new thing.
Right.
And she's kind of there, kind of past her welcome, and she's really only there because she used to have star power, and I guess she doesn't anymore.
Right. Yeah, it is very much. It is very much the. I guess like the tale of time, right? Of just like the tale of youth and trying to maintain your youth. But I do like how there is very much the idea of like trying to push I guess like the narrative, right? Of like this a lot of times it's driven by other forces, not just like, you know, we all have like, or I wouldn't say we all, but a lot more often than not, we all tend to have like issues with our body, right? And how we see ourselves and perceive ourselves. But it is a lot of times it's like society and culture and everything that drives that even worse, right?
Sure.
And so, and that tale has gone on many times, I'm sure, and we've seen it in tons and tons of movies. But I have to say, like, this is probably one of the first times I've ever seen a movie where, like, this is done really, really well of like what they're trying to say, because this movie has like this extreme amount of like fantasy / like, you know, we talk a lot about
the visual spectacle of
yes.
it. Of it's so extreme,
the world it
and
lives
so
in.
deliberate.
Yes. Yeah.
That yeah, it's just like it's kind of stunning to look at.
Yes.
And you know, I gotta say, excuse me, still fighting off a little cough thing, but I gotta say, this is what the second or third French movie that we've seen over the past few months.
Yeah, that you have. Yeah,
that I have.
Yeah,
and it's, you know, I'll admit, and you know this, but I've tried to stay away from a lot of French films, especially in the genre, because they can get so extreme. And the last one that we watched that was French was, how do you say it? Titan?
Titan.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to.
And then
I don't know French, obviously.
On top of that, yeah.
Oh, that was that French too?
It was a French director. Yes.
Okay,
it's technically a French film. Yeah.
Yeah. So these. So I guess this is I mean, it's not in French, but it's a French director.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, there's something about kind of the French sensibility of like we're just gonna fucking go.
Right.
There's no. What is it? There's no there's no constraints. I feel like there's no.
Well, no, I think there are constraints.
No, like,
there's very strong vision.
Right. Well, yeah, but like what I mean is like if we're gonna make a point, we're not gonna be subtle.
Yeah.
I guess is what I meant more than anything. It's more like how far can we push this and like say this message. And we're not really gonna hold back because I don't really care if you're gonna find this off-putting or this is how I wanna convey this message, and I don't really care how uncomfortable it makes you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and you gotta respect that level of art.
Yeah.
Where it's just so it's almost like uncompromising.
Yes.
Because honestly, think about how popular the horror genre is these days. And how this is a huge movie now, right? I mean, it's still like limited release, whatever, but it had like standing ovations at the film festivals, the film circuit, whatever, the festival circuits. And it had like, obviously it's very divisive as far as how people are viewing this movie.
Right.
Because of the subject matter. But the fact that it's got this huge audience versus like, you know, 20 or 30 years ago, where like I imagine it would have been not as easy to get like the budget or the production value that this has achieved and to get the range of audience that it has. And the fact that, I don't know, it's, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I guess it feels like this movie felt really shocking, but still very, I don't know, like, nostalgic almost, because it touches on a lot of the old horror classic tropes.
Yeah.
With a brand new message.
Right.
right? Because it's so. What movies does this remind you of?
Well, that's what it's funny you say this because that's exactly what I was going to.
There's a whole. I feel like it stands on a lot of shoulders.
Yes.
Not in a bad way. Like, I don't think it's necessarily copying, but so much as like an homage to like, okay, here's a horror movie from the point of view of a woman.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's not so much, it's like, it's both Frankenstein's monster and The Fly and The Thing and all of these incredible older horror movies. And it's still like, okay, but what about if we're talking about beauty standards for women and the patriarchy?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's such a great point of view.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's partly what I was going to say too, and I'm glad you kind of called that out because, like, something I was going to tell you as soon as this movie is over was like, it is amazing to live in the period of filmmaking and video store era and everything that I've lived through a lot of it and I've introduced you to a lot of it as we've kind of watched these movies. And it's crazy to watch the evolution of where we are now. And that this movie has, like you said, it's getting a lot of buzz. People are talking about it. It has like legit stars, right? Like,
right.
These are some of like Hollywood's.
I mean, Demi Moore.
Demi Moore, like even though she hasn't done anything in a while though,
yeah.
But her name and her credibility,
it's like, yeah,
carries a lot of value. And then with the other Margaret Qualley, like, and even Dennis Quaid, who's like also in his 70s, I think.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's up there. And oddly enough, like dating somebody really young. But anyway,
no, of course.
Yeah. And so like, but when you look back in the 80s, and there were a lot of movies like Reanimator and movies like From Beyond, Society, like these movies that were considered like so immature and so.
It's such like a juvenile point of view,
right?
Or what is this? It's just for shocks. It's just for the teenage boys,
and you just want to, you just want to see blood and slime and like gore.
This is an excuse for like gross shit that you want to see.
Yes, but like a lot of those movies always had something. They probably had more to say than a lot of other like mainstream movies,
and that's why they're
era.
Classics, right?
Yeah.
Like now, looking back,
exactly, and that's what I was going to say. Is like this movie, like you were saying, harkens back to a time when those movies were like looked down upon, but partly because they didn't have production value or all their budget went to like VFX, like to make the monster makeup. Like, I don't know if you remember the movie From Beyond, which is one with Barbara Crampton.
Yes.
And it's very tentacle and it's H.P. Lovecraft.
Right.
Like this reminds me a ton of that movie, but partly because like how it ends, right? But man, like the visual, like the production value, the thought put into this, like it's amazing to watch like a movie like this because, I mean, like I was saying, this movie, where like you were saying, is non-compromising, but not even non-compromising in like the way that the movie like is presented to us, but the way that the vision to make a movie like this,
right?
You have to storyboard everything. There is no like improv, like, oh, hey, let's try this or try that, right? Because in a movie like From Beyond or Reanimator, they're like, oh yeah, let's try something and see if like it's funny or if it lands or whatever. Yeah. You can't do that with a movie like this because like this movie has to be precise in like the way it was filmed.
Yeah, every choice that was made was very deliberate.
It's very intentional. Like, I mean, like even
the lighting, the shots, yeah.
I mean, there were so many times I keep looking to you. I was like, oh my God,
gorgeous!
Like, look at that shot.
So
like,
beautifully filmed. Like, I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, the setup for that, just everything would just be like insane. And I think we kind of get away from the movie itself, but that's fine. So anyway, yeah, just really quick, the old celebrity sort of person who's being phased out by Hollywood basically is given the option to like, hey, I can give you youth and classic story, right? And then is able to use that to sort of re-energize herself, and in a way that like the movie, I think the character of Demi Moore, Elizabeth, clearly she has self-esteem problems, And I think that they kind of like hinted that throughout the movie, not only, I guess, like in her latter age, but probably that's always kind of been there. And it's like a subtle, like sort of, I feel like, tone that's sort of played there. But, so basically, yeah, she's given the opportunity to be able to rejuvenate herself to be able to continue to do what she does, which is basically be like I would probably say like a B-level celebrity or a B or like an A-, right? Like there was a time when like, you know, like
I think they alluded to some kind of like she had won awards before.
Yeah.
Or something, but it was like a long time ago.
Right.
Like Emmys or something like that.
Right. And that's like when Hollywood or television or whatever like wanted these things, right? And now they're kind of like phasing that out. They don't really get into that very much because, again, I feel like
it's kind of besides the point.
Yeah, again, it's so really well done of like the world that they set up for this at the very onset of like, you don't have to worry about like what about the internet? Where's the phones?
Right.
This is yet another.
It's all besides the point.
It's another good example of just none of that really matters because they really set it all up for you that it's that, yeah, like you said, it's like none of that's it's all
it's all like the stylistic choices. So like this is the story that we're telling. Everything else is just fluff.
Right.
So we're not going to worry about the details or really even making this any kind of realistic, right?
Right.
It's more like allegorical almost, or like almost a fable.
Yes. Yes. Like I'm glad you said that because it almost feels like a classic Tales from the Crypt or
I was gonna say that
the Monsters or Tales from the Dark Side or Friday the 13th, the series. Like it's one of those. Or even, you want your beauty, right? Yeah. Like at what cost, right? And
or it's almost like a modern, like a more I don't know, like a Black Mirror episode, kind of a little bit too.
Kind of, yeah. I can kind of see that. What I do like about this is because what I was saying, like if it was like a Tales from the Crypt or something, right? Usually it's like I don't want to say they blame the woman for making the decisions because clearly, like that's not necessarily the case here. But at the same time, like you know. You have to own up to like what you're doing, right? So I guess from this point forward, we'll just, we'll say fucking spoilers out the ass for the rest of this movie. But
sorry.
So I will say from the very beginning, right? Like we were saying, all the shots, there's so many tight, close shots of this that it's masterfully done in terms of like cinematography. All I kept thinking about was like, I want the book that shows all the storyboards for this because there's no way there is no way that you're improving any of this stuff.
Yeah, just off the cuff. Yeah,
so intentional with the colors, all the homages to like The Shining. I mean, it's interesting because like I'm not sure. Other than stylistically, like it's cool to see like the Shining choices in here. I don't know if they actually like mean anything with the movie.
Yeah, no, I don't see a lot of parallels with anything. Well, I guess there was that like anything Kubrick other than the Shining stuff and like what is it, the Space Odyssey music towards the end.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But
but yeah,
like as far as like thematically, not necessarily, because it's definitely not shot like a Kubrick movie. It has its own sensibility.
No, it has
that's very specific and particular.
It definitely has its own flair. I love. There were so many just. It's kind of funny because again, this kind of goes back to. Well, I always think about when it makes me upset when I think back to art school. And I remember taking classes on like framing, cinematography, stuff like that. We didn't take a ton of it, but we did have to like we took a decent amount because there's a good understanding of that. And a lot of the shots here that you see, which are like bird's eye or like 3-point perspective shots or things that are like very like non-conventional. And there's a lot of cutting in here, which normally you would say like this is kind of getting annoying.
It's annoying, yeah.
But it really helps build up the story and the tension, like the amount of contrast between
it's nuts.
shot to shot to shot.
It's so striking that it's almost disorienting, but in maybe the best way.
But it kind of needs to be, right?
Shocks your system.
Yeah.
Constantly really when you're supposed to be shocked.
Right. Yes, I love all the stylistic choices, right? Of like keeping things like pretty simple, but there seems to be a lot of depth.
Yes.
So like as an example, we're kind of looking at the scene right now, right, where she goes into the locker to go get her the substance, and then when it goes between that and her apartment or whatever, like again, if this was like a 1984 set, like it would look super cheesy,
right?
But this movie has the production value of like good lighting, and they probably are using some level of CG to sort of level balance, and they probably put a lot of effort into the thought process of set decoration and art direction as far as colors go. Even like when she pulls out the substance and all the stuff, like
like the unboxing basically.
Yeah, like they put a lot of effort into the amount of like
the design,
the graphic design, and the aesthetic of all that. Because again, if it was like, the juice that they use almost looks like the stuff from like Reanimator. Yeah, but like that looked really cheesy in Reanimator. Sure. And in here, it seems very legit.
Like it looks like, does it not exist? Or
yeah, I mean,
is this real? Or?
Yeah. And so I really liked, how all of that, it adds to that sort of dreaminess of like,
that? They Live, the graphics of it, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
There's like so many homages to all those things. And I guess we should say,
but it's not like,
they're not like blatant.
Hitting you over the head with it. You know what I mean? It's not like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge of like, hey, remember when?
Yes.
It's more like, no, I don't know. It's almost like incidental.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really interesting because it's very effective. Like I said, it adds to the world building and the dreaminess of it all of like, I take medications and I have other things, and I've received stuff in a box similar to this where I had to do like a self-home test for some stuff. And it was it's very matter of fact. And so when you see it here, it's almost like amplified matter of fact, but it is done in a way that it's like, man, that actually does seem like our future, right? Like where we're all going to be headed when we're doing this kind of stuff. Or if we do this kind of stuff. I don't know. Not that we would. Hopefully we'll be long gone by the time this stuff is a real thing. But so yeah, the whole premise, and which I love, and I told you, it's like, because we go down this rabbit hole of like, well, what is the substance? And it's basically like, it's a replicator is basically what it is. Like it I guess somehow like clones you internally. So I guess you are your own incubator. And I guess you create your own. Yeah,
it doesn't really go too hard into details. Yeah, it's just like this is the thing.
Yeah,
and it happens. It doesn't even explain to Demi Moore's character what's going to happen. It's just like implying that, like, there's a better version of you, and you can unlock it. And here it is. Just take the green goo.
Right. And it was shocking to me because when she takes the green goo. and I expected like her to maybe like reverse werewolf into like a younger version of her.
Sure.
I mean, I guess I should have thought about it because I tried to avoid all the trailers. I tried to avoid as much reading about this. So I never, and I saw the graphic poster or the image of her laying on her side with the stitches, but I had no idea what that was. And then so when it plays itself out and like bizarro version of her comes out of her
tauntauns out of her.
Yeah. There's, and I'm sure it smelled like worse on the inside.
Crazy.
That was fucking nuts.
Crazy. I cannot.
I
just the kind of brain that has to think of doing that. You know what I mean? It's like beyond all concept of laws of physics, or biology or whatever, and it's just like how can just sitting there thinking about this story is like, how can I clone somebody? No, I'm not gonna do machines. It's just she's just gonna have the other person inside her,
right?
Literally.
Well, like, and I love that. I love that. Like, again, in this world, it just seems to kind of make sense, right? Like,
yes.
And so, like, when she transforms, and like she's in the bathroom, and like, as grotesque as it is that there is another person coming out of her back, it's a gorgeous like setup and shot because
it is, and the
bathroom is like super white. Yeah. Everything is white.
Like it's a all stark tile. Contrast. And yeah, it's so, I don't even know like how I can say something like that was like beautifully done, but it kind of was beautifully done.
It was.
And it's so bizarre to say because gory. Literally her like back is like ripped in half.
Yeah, and like she bursts out like a 20-something-year-old.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's not even like small infant child or anything. Literally a full grown woman comes out of her.
Yeah.
So, oh my God.
Yeah, it was.
Oh my God.
It was so good.
It was so shocking. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
And that's what I was, and going back to what we were saying earlier, right? Like where a younger, well, not even a younger generation, but like the generation of people that were like, oh, fucking, From Beyond and all that, like so immature, like so, it's just there for the sake of gore, right? And then you probably have scholars now that are like, the imagery here is I do love the shot when she is coming out, and she has like that vision of what appears to be like DNA strands or whatever that are happening like really fast. And then like she kind of can't hear and all that stuff. Like that actually kind of like really weirded me out because like, I guess like when you feel that way, when you feel very like whenever I get like an ear infection or something like that, and I get real like muted, I get real claustrophobic. I hate that feeling for me personally. But that whole sequence kind of felt like that, and I was just like, it's probably one of the better ones. Like not just because of the ringing, but like kind of the blurry vision, and you hear a little bit of the ringing, and like you feel just disoriented because your equilibrium is thrown off. But like. Man, like it was so well done, and I'm not trying to discredit like by any means saying that it was better in the 80s. Like I just love that there's an evolution of this now that is done in a way that like young 18 or 16-year-old version of me loved that shit back then, and now I get like the fancy French dinner like version of it, where it's like, oh, tonight we're having a young woman pop out of the back of another woman, and it's like, oh, sounds delicious. And
it's an update on a classic.
Yeah, and we're gonna pair it with a 67 Chevelle or I don't know or whatever. So it was just so when that sequence happens, it's just so unreal, and then. And we were talking about it like throughout the movie, like as the sequences kind of play out, because basically Demi Moore's character is getting replaced, or they're making the clear they're trying to clearly tell her that they're going to replace her because she's old and they want somebody hot and young and sexy to do her
like literally her show
to replace her on her show, and. So they're going to do auditions for that. And so the Sue, who's birthed out of Elizabeth, kind of, and I think you and I were talking about this, like we weren't 100% sure, but the assumption is because they are the same DNA that they don't necessarily share the same conscience, but
consciousness,
but like,
but I don't know.
But it's like,
almost like, so like one is awake and the other one's asleep.
Right. So it's almost like they're dreaming.
Right.
In a way.
Right.
But they only remember like, I guess it is like when you're dreaming because you only remember, or at least for me, a lot of times you remember
like bits and pieces.
You remember the right before you wake up sort of moment.
Right.
And so during the transfer, when they transfer each other back, we're not even going to explain how that works. Basically, you just tie into the other person and you just.
Right. Well, so the rule is you can only be in like you can be one
One or the other.
one or the other for 7 days, and then you have to switch with the other one. So basically, you go into, I don't know, you go to sleep, I guess, for 7 days, and then the other version like lives her life.
Right.
And so there's, it becomes this whole idea of like, well, what is this new clone version gonna do with her life in the 7 days that she's awake?
Yeah.
And then like, what does Demi Moore do when she wakes up? 7 days. So it's this back and forth of like the young, gorgeous person taking advantage of all the opportunities that's presented to her, and kind of the older person kind of getting depressed that she's getting left behind even now.
Right.
Because they're the same person, but they're not. They're living different lives.
Correct. But they are the same person, but they are not like, I think they have their own, I don't know how you could describe, like spirit, like spirit in the sense of like what drives them.
Right.
Because when Sue has the opportunity, when I say spirit, whether it's good or bad, so like Demi Moore is clearly like her demeanor is very low. Her self-esteem is low, which is why she's even willing to try this. But she also knows that Sue is technically her in a way. And she is like continuing like her life's work. But in a way,
even though it's not her,
right? She subconsciously is thinking that like, oh, well, that's like, that is me. And I'm sort of building on it. But then, and it's funny because the substance, whoever the people are behind the substance are, and the substance and stuff, they keep trying to remind you that you are one. So like, even though you're having these thoughts, you're technically the same person, but you're not different people. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like there is like some sort of analogy here, right? Of some kind of like, maybe you live a different life. Like, I don't know whether, I was thinking about this when we were watching a movie, but I don't know if they're trying to say like, maybe you have this facade on social media where things look so much better, but the underneath is really
like messy
and
real,
and you're kind of depressed. But what you put out on the front, the facade,
that's what everybody sees,
right? And that's what everybody wants, right? And it's going to sell all the money. It's going to be hot. And it's going to be sexy and all these things. And so like, it's almost like a metaphor or something. I'm not exactly sure, but that was just kind of like my thought, because the part of it is like, you can't really, that's not sustainable, right? Like you can't live this facade social media life or front facade. Yeah. And then, so like you were saying, it's like, well, every 7 days you got to switch back.
Yeah.
Because you almost have to like rejuice up, which they have to literally do here, where they have to like, I guess they're rebuilding whatever fluid or whatever is inside of them that they transfer back and forth to each other.
Right.
So it's almost like they're saying like the I don't know. It's like, I don't know exactly what the analogy or what exactly she's trying to say, right? But it's like 7 days you have to share to maintain like the balance, is what they keep saying, right? The balance between the two. And so, not that Sue gets tied up on the fact that like everybody loves her and she looks great and all these things, right? But they keep reminding like, hey, you still have to do
7
this.
days is 7 days.
Right. And as the movie kind of goes on, she starts taking down the posters and she starts taking down everything that reminds her of the old version of her.
Right.
And removes it to the point where like she literally builds like a room so that Elizabeth just has like basically a black room, like to basically just sleep for 7 days. And it was really interesting because I clearly, she's trying to say something in that. I don't know exactly what the message was, other than like, this is not sustainable, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like we were saying, I think as those scenes kind of play out, as intentional as all the other shots were, where every time it would come to Sue, they kept showing these like super tight shots of like putting on her makeup and like super like micro micro photography of like her skin
lips,
and her lips and her eyes and stuff. And like, it kind of started getting really gross for me because
like creepy
like, and like
it's super
like invasive.
Yes.
And like, like it's feels wrong.
Right.
Like, and then the audio on top of that, you know, just like the ASMR-y.
Like, like breathy, like breathy kind of.
You can hear like the skin.
Like panting kind of. Yeah, it's very kind of
like slapping like, chicken on a counter. Where
it's very like kind of sexualized, but not, but almost like subconsciously feeding you that it's sexualized.
Yes, I thought that was super effective because like it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like, I'm sure. Ooh, look how hot that is! But it was like it's starting to get gross.
Yeah, like you kind of you want to turn away because it's almost too much.
Too much. Yeah,
and it's such an interesting. And this is. I hate to say it, but this is how you know it was filmed by a woman.
Yes.
Because it's like, it's showing you, it's almost like shoving it into your face. That like, look at this male gaze. This is what you bullshit. Like, right? This is how you like it, right?
You like ass.
You like titties. Like, here it is. It's all like right in front, like right 3 inches from the camera.
Yeah.
And you want to look away because it's too much. It's almost like
you don't have a choice.
It's almost like the worst kind of porn. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't want to see all this. It's a lot.
And there's nowhere to look because it fills like the entire
it fills the screen. Yeah, you're right. That's what it is. And it's like, it's make all the shots that are fed to you as a viewer that's supposed to be, ooh, sexy.
Right.
And she's kind of grindy while she's dancing and moving her hips a lot. And the camera is right up on her crotch. And it's almost like, I get... like you're trying to sell it as sexy, but it's somehow like really gross.
Yeah.
And it's such an interesting feeling, right?
Because it was. It's like, it was so well done.
It's so well done, but like I can't put a finger of like how that feels so different versus how like it would be shot by somebody else. Does that make sense?
No, you're right. Like the comparison between Michael Bay doing like the ass follow shot with what's her face from like, Transformers?
Megan Fox.
Yeah. To this,
right?
You could compare them very closely,
right?
And this, I mean, like I guess maybe if you played the same sort of audio or tried to set it up in a similar way, like maybe that would not be as gross, or maybe it would be as gross, like seeing Megan Fox with the way that Michael Bay like sort of films some of that stuff. But I mean,
there's something about this that was, I don't know, that it's like, oh, she's showing how gross the male gazy bullshit can be.
Yeah.
And like it makes it obvious that it's actually in reality gross.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
it's so fascinating because the difference of like how that would be shot if it was supposed to be titillating.
Right.
Versus how it is shot where it's like, ew, that's too much.
Right. Well, and I think that Dennis Quaid's character helps build on that.
Yeah.
He's like the executive who is like
literally
casting.
Literally his character name is Harvey.
If
it gives you an idea of what they're going for.
But he is so like, I will say Dennis Quaid like can have his own, opinions in the world outside of, that we may not necessarily agree with. But man, he's a really good actor because
he's great in this. Perfect.
He plays the part exactly the way that they needed it to be played. And this guy's not a dummy. Like he's not like, like this is, whatever. Like
this is glamorous for me as a role. Like,
right.
No, he knows exactly what
he was doing. And he nailed it because his grossness and his portrayal of a Harvey Weinstein type character, like you said, adds to this in a way that just because there's only like 5 characters in this whole movie, probably. That I mean, with the small side characters aside, so like the world only feels like it is these people, and so the more gross and over the top, like just disgusting of like a slime ball that he is, it emphasizes the other characters that much more, and because I mean, there's only so many people we can look at, that they're presenting to us, and it really works. It's very effective. He's so good in this. I mean, honestly, all 3 of them are phenomenal.
Yeah.
In what is being asked, because like you were saying, it's like a fairy tale gone wrong, right?
Right.
Or
well, it's very, what is it? What does this remind me of? Like a picture of Dorian Gray, right? Like where they want to be youthful forever, but it comes at a price.
right.
And it's like that age old kind of tale, right? Like what would you give to be able to be young?
Right.
How much of yourself are you bargaining to
Yeah.
be able to do that?
Yeah.
And it's such a
so
it's
good.
such a stunning like modern take on it because of how fame works these
Right.
days.
Yeah, and I feel again like I know that they don't intentionally say that it's social media, but just the way it's like the people
Like
love
the
you.
feel of it, right?
Like, Dennis Quaid's character, Harvey, just keeps talking about like the ratings and the numbers.
Yeah.
And all that could be construed as just like it's the same as likes and hits and whatever's, right?
Sure.
Because he talks about this all like leads to Sue becoming just basically a superstar.
Yeah.
And they're like, we want you to do the biggest show that we have, which is the New Year's, the what is it? The Dick Clark, Rockin' Eve or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they want her to do that, but because of the whole, like the balance that she's supposed to maintain, the every 7 days supposed to switch back and forth, like a drug, like any other drug, she basically is becoming like, I wonder how far I can push this. Right. And so
what if one more day can be bad?
Right. Exactly. It's exactly what people do with drugs when doctors tell you like
just a little bit more.
Yeah. It's like, hey, you're only supposed to take X amount of this.
Yeah.
And you only should do it every 3 days. And it's like, well, but what if I half it or quarter it or whatever, right?
But
it'll be fine.
Yeah, but
I know my body.
It makes me feel good.
Right. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I know myself, blah, 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 blah. So she basically starts, so it's supposed to be every 7 days. And then it kind of turns into like 8
days.
8.5.
10 days.
I think it initially starts with like, oh, just an extra hour.
Just an extra couple hours.
Yeah.
There's this hot guy I want to bang.
And there's a party tonight.
There's a party and I want to hang out and have a late night out.
Oh, that's right. Because the substance material says 7 days, no exceptions.
Right.
And it's very clear in its big black bold.
Which I also love because it's like, it's this sense of like, okay, there's no confusion. They're doing it like if you're gonna choose to do the bad thing, then you're doing it deliberately.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're doing it consciously.
There's no
because it's literally in big bold black letters.
Right.
No exceptions.
Right.
So if you decide there is an exception, well, that's on you.
Right. Because like the rules of a werewolf or whatever, right? It's like it has to be silver bullets or it has to be a stake right in the heart for a vampire, right?
Right.
The rules are, but then it's like, well, what about like you can't misinterpret the ability.
You can't argue it.
Right. It just says 7 days, no exceptions.
Right.
So when she's like, well, we'll push it to an 8th day, but just until the morning, and then I'll switch it in the morning. Like already things start going wrong, and I know we're going to talk spoilers, and we kind of have. I almost don't want to really talk about like some of the sequences because I would rather if anybody listens to this, just watch it on your own. There's no way that we could describe like what happens on the 8th day,
it's
the day after,
yeah,
because it's so visual.
You just have to see it. It's so wild. I have never really seen anything.
Yeah,
like it
I mean,
before.
we will talk about the end. So like this builds up to the end of like
so there's this back and forth of like how
far can I push this?
Yeah, how far can Sue take this? That she's just like basically stealing the essence or whatever of like of Elizabeth. Like how far is she going to take this?
It's almost like she's burning bridges with her past. Like like she's building like everything that Sue is on the shoulders of Elizabeth's past.
Right.
But it's almost like, and because at one point, remember, she's being interviewed.
Yeah.
And they ask her, like, did you ever watch the shows?
Come from? Yeah.
And did you ever watch the shows of the woman you replaced? And she's like,
no,
my mom
she's
did.
Old,
yeah,
so
she's like a dinosaur.
Really. Yeah.
Like, whatever, she's very like.
She's very flippant about it. She's very dismissive.
Right. But it's like, she's not respecting where like
literally where she came from.
yeah, literally. And so like I really like that too, because that's kind of where the back and forth kind of goes, right? Where it's like she starts to kind of dismiss the past, and it turns out that the longer that she holds off on like not doing what she needs to do every 7 days, like Elizabeth, Demi Moore's character, like ages super fast,
deteriorating.
Yeah, like she's literally turning into the crypt keeper,
falling apart. Yeah,
every time. Like, so if she goes like a day, her finger was all fucked up. Like her finger looked like the crypt keeper's finger, and that was just from one day of
extra day
of going too far.
Like of like Sue taking over.
Yeah, and so I guess this is where we'll kind of spoil the movie. We've already mentioned it, so hopefully you've already seen it. But if you have not, just stop here until we talk about the food, which that's going to be nuts.
Do we have to?
That's our podcast. So kind of fast forwarding a couple things, she gets very obsessed because of the popularity of them being Harvey and the stockholders. I love how it's the stockholders, and they show a bunch of white dudes that are literally the stockholders.
Yeah.
And they basically, so she becomes obsessed. It becomes a drug. So instead of just going a day too far, she eventually pushes it to 3 months, where she is like draining Demi Moore's character.
And she's living her life, and she's huge superstar now, and she's doing the talk show circuits. Cover of Vogue. She's like on all the billboards, and
banging
she's
all the hot dudes.
Yeah, and she's about to get into movies and just all of this
Everything,
stuff.
Yeah.
Like basically like literally just living her life.
Right. But high on cocaine, like high on this drug of like.
Yeah, it's what's keeping her going, literally.
Right. But it is destroying. Well, again, like it feels very like, right, like in the analogy of like, it's taking the drugs to keep her persona going on the front side, but she is killing, like she's killing herself.
Yeah.
Like, even though she doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah.
So in some ways you could say that that's like a somebody who has like a drug problem or something, right? Is like it, you know, when you talk about like, oh, there's another version of me that like, that comes out when I do drugs,
right.
You know, and I can't control that person. Like this is like a literal like form of that or something. I'm not sure. But to see that was kind of unreal. So she effectively, I guess towards the climax of the movie, she's gone like 3 months of not going back, even though she's supposed to be doing it every 7 days. She has not done it for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then she basically has drained Demi Moore all the way out, and she can't go back because she's like, I guess, if you don't go back, you start like kind of freaking out. And I guess like the body starts like shutting down.
Yeah.
And you need that juice from the original,
right.
The original host in order to like maintain, your ability to keep going. And so since there is no more of that, she calls like the place that gave her the substance, and it was like, hey, I can't get any more juice out of her. Like, what do I do here? And they were like, well, I mean, that's kind of your fault.
Yeah, that's it. Good
like,
luck.
Yeah.
But and then they basically tell her, well, you have to give her 7 days.
Yeah.
Because that's how that works. You're supposed to, because that will replenish the juice that she needs from Elizabeth.
Right. And so if you do 7 days, you'll be able to get the juice, and you'll be able to to kind of do that.
Yeah.
So she decides to do it.
But she has no choice at that point. Right. Like she's literally like probably feeling that she's about to die.
Yeah.
So she doesn't want to, because it's going to be her big New Year's show the next day. But she has to, otherwise she's just not going to survive.
Yeah. So she transfers herself back. Demi Moore wakes up after 3 months of not being able to like be herself or have any juice.
And and this new clone of her basically like stealing her essence. So she's not looking great.
No.
After
like
3 months.
She gives the crypt keeper a run for his money.
Yeah.
And that's like no joke of like how you describe like her 3 months of without juice, or without being transferred back. And so, I guess in a moment of desperation, she calls the substance place and tells her like, I want to terminate all this. Like, I want to just stop.
Yeah.
And the
This is
guy,
bullshit.
yeah, whoever the guy is in the other line says, are you sure? Because once you stop, that's it. You can't go back. Like you can't restart this process. So, they tell her like, okay, if that's what you want to do. And apparently they send like effectively what's a termination kit.
Yeah, literally like to euthanize.
Yeah, it's like a euthanize the clone.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, but you stay the way you are.
Yeah, there's no going back as far as like how she looks now after 3 months of her, I don't know, her soul being sucked out by the clone.
Yeah.
And she looks like how she looks. There's no going back. That's how she's gonna be forever.
So she decides that she's gonna do that. She's administering the termination like medication. And then she stops like right at the very end and she realizes like, I can't do this because, and then
what she says is it was so poignant because she was like, what did she say? I can't do it because you're why they love us. Right. Like she says that like in the middle, like when she's kind of stopping herself.
Right.
And it's so like, I don't know. It's so like, I don't know.
It's like a drug user. Like it really is, right?
Kinda,
like,
yeah, it kind of is, but
because it's kind of like, even though it's killing you, but you do know that like that's where like people, that's why people love you because you're on this high, right? You're on this thing,
yeah.
And people only know that, and they only care about that because I guess kind of going back the way that they were treating her at the beginning, it's like, oh, you're old, you're shitty, nobody cares about you, like it accounts for both of them, right? To have this persona facing outward, even though the inside is like sad and lonely and kind of depressed. So she doesn't want to terminate the clone because of the fact that, like you said, she literally says like, it's because they love us.
Yeah.
Right. And so she still sees it that way. So she stops the termination, but her clone doesn't see it that way. Her clone
wakes up and it's like, what the fuck? And just goes nuts.
Right. Because it's like, oh, you tried to kill me. Like, you tried to terminate me. Because she sees like the leftover vial or whatever. And so during that, the clone Sue like kills Elizabeth. I mean, like literally just just beats her to hell.
Drop kicks her, yeah.
I mean, it's brutal.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's
super intense.
It's very French. Like they take it.
I guess
they take it to the.
There's a lot of blood.
They take it to the extreme. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They take it to the extreme. And if there's anything we know about this director, her name is, I guess I'm not good with French. Coralie Fargeat.
I don't know.
Fargeat.
Sure.
Like that.
Fargo. I don't know.
Yeah. So
not French, obviously. Either.
Right. She made the movie which I love. I don't know how you felt about the movie Revenge that she did.
I don't know. I'm kind of half and half on it a little bit.
I love that movie because I think it had a very similar.
It's definitely her touch aesthetic as well
of like great shots, beautiful shots,
crazy,
very well thought out,
female
extreme
rage.
Amounts of blood.
Yes,
like
I do respect that.
Yes, because there's a scene in Revenge with an extreme amount of blood.
Literally, she's covered in blood.
And when Sue kills Elizabeth, the scene kind of remind me of the scene from Revenge.
Yes, absolutely.
And holy shit, there's so much blood. Like when she kills her, and it's basically just like a curb stomp. Like it's like a gang. It's like a gang sort of beat up, not like a.
It's definitely like unflinching in the violence. It just goes hard at it.
It starts like kind of as a cat fight, and then it quickly escalates to like
it does not
this
end
is
like
straight
a cat
up
fight.
like like Crips Bloods.
Murder, like on the street.
Yeah,
it's crazy,
brutal.
It was nuts.
And so she eventually kills Elizabeth. Like Elizabeth is dead,
right?
And now that she's dead, I guess
there's still
feels better.
Well, they still have a connection, right? So it implies that like, well, now Elizabeth's dead. She feels weird because now it's actually like her origin point is gone. So she is also worried now, I think, that like, well, what's gonna happen to me now that I'm alive for now, but now that Elizabeth is gone, I don't know how that works.
Yeah. And yeah, I think, yeah, like you said, she starts kind of freaking out, but there's also like kind of like we were saying earlier, like maybe, I don't know if it's like her soul or like her whatever, like the junkie side of her is still alive, but is out of control and doesn't have a balance of like her soul trying to balance things. Cause it's like almost like she killed like her old past and is like just completely decided that she's going to go full throttle.
Yeah. Like she can go out on her own.
Right. And it turns out that she can't. But instead of in a metaphorical sense, it's in a literal sense because her body starts falling apart. Oof. Like literally her teeth start falling out.
Her nails.
Her nail comes off and then her ear falls off.
Crazy. Oh my God.
Like her ear just literally
like flumps.
Yeah. Flump. And there's my ear.
And of course, she's like in this beautiful gown getting ready for the New Year's Eve thing.
Right. Oh, that's right. In this,
yeah, because she's not falling apart in the comfort of her own home.
No, it's New Year's Eve.
Yeah, she's about to like go on stage, literally.
Right. And they're about to they're looking for her. All this is taking place on the soundstage, all this stuff. And so she's in a complete panic because she realizes, Elizabeth's dead. There's no more juice. I have nowhere to go with any of this stuff. But she does remember that there is a little bit left over of the activator.
Activation fluid.
The very first thing.
The green goo.
Yeah, the green goo. But it is very clear on the bottle. It says one-time use only.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit left.
But
So she figures, you know what? If I give this to myself, Sue, then a better version of me will kind of, should generate.
At this point, she's desperate. She wants a better version of herself because she's literally falling apart.
Right. So
she's like, if there's another version of me that can come out, then that would be better. Great. But remember, she's the clone version.
Right.
So what is the activation fluid that you're not supposed to take more than once anyway? And now the clone is taking it. What does that do? I don't know. It's a mystery. Right. And if you think up to this point that the movie has been fucking nuts, Holy shit. It just turns it all the way up.
The last I don't know, I guess the last 20 minutes of the movie is just fucking madness. Like, so she does take the juice, she clones herself, and she clones into like exactly something you would have seen out of From Beyond, Reanimator,
Thing.
In the Mouth of Madness, The Thing, like
all of those. Yes,
Color Out of Space,
even The Fly.
Oh yeah, definitely The Fly. This okay. It's
just.
I will say this though, it made me feel vibes of like The Elephant Man, like Cronenberg or not Cronenberg, Lynch.
Okay.
Because like you kind of feel sorry, and everybody's treating her like garbage.
A freak, yeah.
Like. But, I mean, she has multiple mouths and there are eyes. Demi Moore's face is coming out of the back of her, like on her back.
Yeah.
Her arm is coming out in there's no...
It's crazy.
There's no description.
She's a monster.
She is a monster, yeah. She is as grotesque as you could imagine. It was unreal. Like, and it's all practical.
And it's so like unexpected.
I did not expect
up until this point, it was like, besides the Elizabeth character, like becoming what is essentially like a crone towards the end, like up until then, it's still semi in the real world, like 1 foot in the real world.
Yeah.
And then the last 20 or 15 minutes, it's just like, okay, now whatever. I don't care.
Right. Well, no, it's not that not like I don't even care, right? But it's like, this is the monster that you have created.
Right. Literally a literal monster.
Yeah. This is all on you, right? There were rules. There were simple rules to follow. There were things that you needed to do. There were things you could have done and you didn't. And
here we are.
This is where we're at. There is so much blood
in the end,
in the last
there's
couple
literally
minutes,
like a fire hose worth of blood just spewing.
I can't like.
I don't know that I've seen that much blood before.
It makes Evil Dead 2
I was
and
gonna say
Evil
Evil
Dead
Dead.
Rise.
Yeah.
It makes those look like child's play.
It was kind of
Holy fuck.
insane.
Because they're in a soundstage.
Yeah.
Like they're in a studio, like a theater style studio, and that thing is covered in blood.
Gushing.
At the end. There's
gushing.
Holy shit. Like
there's so much.
Because there's an amazing transformation that happens at the end.
Oh yeah, we're not even done. We're not even done. That's
the transformation that already happens. You have to see it. Like it's crazy. Indescribable.
It was so unexpected. I don't know. I'm still recovering.
Well, and
from it.
It's crazy because like I legitimately felt bad for her because they're like she comes up on stage as this monster, and all these people are there to see her, and there's all these women that are like in flamingo, or what do they call it? The Vegas showgirl.
Yeah, showgirls.
Like a showgirl thing with their like boobies, like literally just
hanging out.
I don't know what network these guys were on. Maybe
it was not the Dick Clark show. That's for sure.
No, not that. But yeah, like she they start like, oh no, she starts falling apart again.
Yeah.
Because
she's
her origin,
a clone of a clone,
right?
Yeah,
the origin, Elizabeth, is dead, so she's continuing to fall apart. Her arm falls off, turns into a fucking fire hose of a blood hose. Boobies everywhere. Boobies are covered in blood. Everybody in the stage is covered in blood.
It was
and that's what I was gonna say. Like I felt like honestly a little bad for her because like people stand up and they're like freak. Monster and like shoot the monster like it just turns into like Frankenstein like at the end with the pitchforks and the fire and like
which is kind of hilarious when you think about it, which I know is like we've been saying before, like the details and the reality is kind of beyond what this movie is trying to do, but it is kind of funny to think about like how did she get all the way up to the stage to begin with? If they're just gonna treat her like a monster. Which is, I don't know, it was a funny, like kind of a satirical part of it. Because it's like, how did nobody stop her?
Right. If you're one of those people that watches movies like this and thinks that of like, how would she was still wearing heels. How did she even get
she get over there?
It's like, dude, just.
Like, it's not.
You clearly have not been watching this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what you're thinking. Yeah, she has a tail at the end. I don't know what.
I don't think that's a tail.
I don't even know what the tail. I have no idea what is happening.
Dragging out of her that
there is just parts everywhere.
It's so good though.
It is so good. Like the way it ends too with
because it like really scratches that itch of like, oh, this whole time it's kind of this high level concept of like what does it mean to be a woman aging in Hollywood in front of cameras and all the pressure,
unrealistic
societal
expectations,
pressure, blah blah blah. It's super high level concept, right? And then it comes to this where it's just a fucking monster movie. It's so good. It's so satisfying because at the end of it, it's like, yeah, you're still going to get treated like a freak no matter what.
Right.
Like when you're beautiful, you're being treated like a beautiful object, like something to lust over, something to just like, you're not a person. And then you turn into a monster and you're still not being treated like a person. It's just such a great ending because like by the end of it, it's just like, fuck it. Fucking fire hose of blood. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like it's so good.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. This is man. That
2.5 hours did not feel like 2.5 hours, to be honest.
No.
It just kept going. And I was, I don't know, that ride was nuts.
No, that was, you're right. That definitely did not feel like 2.5 hours for like a French meal like this. Oh my God. And there's just like, I'm not even sure what that happens. Is that a boob that falls out of her mouth? Yeah, it's a boob
that comes out of her face.
It comes out of her face, right. Okay, that's right. Okay. And then, and that's the thing that bothers the woman that covers the daughter's eyes of like, don't look at that.
That's what's,
because it's a boob.
God forbid.
Yeah, God forbid. Speaking of boobs.
What?
So we have to pair, we have.
See, do we have to?
We have to. It's our podcast. It's the way we did it. We Man, I thought doing The Exorcist was going to be hard.
I can't even.
I'll-
I'm still processing this movie. I don't know what to tell you about the food.
I'll go. Yeah, not that. Yeah, I'm just gonna go for it. So, a strange pairing, but I would do it. I would get the Jollibee spaghetti with hot dog cutting or cuts for this movie. I would try to eat it all in the first 10 minutes of this movie
before it all goes to hell.
before it all goes, before it turns into spaghetti at the end and like meat sauce and I feel
like I should be offended, but I do love that spaghetti.
Yeah, no, it is really good. And it made me feel like, I don't know, the only thing that I could say, I needed something comforting for this movie to make me feel a little bit better, because like, man, I had so many weird feelings like watching this movie of just like feeling bad for her, but also like why are you doing this to yourself? Like, you know, it's like when you know somebody who's doing drugs, or you know somebody who's has those kinds of problems, and you're like, why do you do this to yourself?
Right.
Like, why do you
have to.
like, you have us, like you have the support you need. Right. Yeah. But like people like that they can't hear that. Right. Yeah. And clearly she could not hear that. Yeah. Her young version of her could only think about it can only think about the fame and the success and the high of it all. I mean,
and even the Elizabeth version is like, she can't see past the fact that she's successful and she's still gorgeous and she's rich and all of that. Like, none of that is enough still. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And yeah, she definitely has like I was saying, there's some sort of like issue there, like a deep issue, right? That she just couldn't kind of overcome. So yeah, I would do Jollibee spaghetti. That's what I would have. What would you have? Just bread? Just breadsticks from Olive Garden?
Just plain crackers, I think.
White saltine crackers?
Just saltine crackers. No, I mean...
There was actually food in this movie, though.
There was food. So she's been gifted as a goodbye present from the assholes that fire her. Elizabeth is gifted this French cookbook, which she cooks kind of in a fury because... You know, fuck it, whatever. I'll eat whatever I want.
My old body can just do whatever.
Because my fucking clone doesn't give a shit about me anyway, so who cares? Or maybe I don't care. What
was that book called? It was called like something about me. Like, it was very like poignant in what it was trying to say. Like it was trying to say something like the cover or something. It's like something about me. I remember seeing that because I was thinking like, oh, okay. I think I kind of get maybe a little bit of where this might be going. But yeah, there were like all these like fancy French. Yeah,
there's some like delicious looking food there in the pictures. And then she just fucking, I don't know, like trashes her house trying to make all of this food, which is, I don't know, which is kind of wild also to watch.
Yeah. It was kind of funny because I was going to ask you at one point, I was like, do you know any of those recipes? Like,
I mean, honestly, probably.
Yeah, because it was like, it all looked like just fancy bougie.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was like, you know, old school like French food.
Yeah, that was like the whole.
It's funny because it wasn't even like a modern cookbook. It looked like something out of the 80s or something.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it looked very.
Like kind of Better Homes and Gardens.
Yeah, but what was that one book with not Christopher Plummer, the other cookbook with
Vincent Price.
The Vincent Price cookbook, like kind of like that.
A little
like
bit,
yeah. It looked just kind of cheesy or whatever because she has like that whole, she makes like the whole chicken thing or whatever.
Yeah, I think she does like a whole turkey and some like creamy mashed potatoes. It was oh, there it is.
Let's see. It is called
French cuisine. From A to Z.
Oh, that's right. From A to Z. I think that was just something.
I think a couple of the recipes sounded kind of.
Yeah. Very. They look kind of gross, to be honest. Like.
It's not. Yeah. It's the pictures. Yeah, it is kind of funny actually, because there's a tripe recipe. There's veal brains.
Foie gras.
And then there was foie gras, like stuffed in turkey, which sounds kind of crazy.
Well, then there is like a little bit of a metaphoric thing right there, right? When she's like stuffing the bird with like other parts, like sort of like she wants like that youth back, you know, or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
It was that was an interesting sort of sequence, but I don't know. What do you think? Fancy duck with foie gras to go with this movie?
No.
I feel like you have to go with a low carb sort of thing, right? In order to
just a nice crisp salad, maybe
to go with the to go with all the fitness and working out.
Yeah, I would say a nice crisp salad with I don't know, maybe like
I like those Wendy salads. The ones with the apples.
I was literally gonna say apples.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's healthy.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I can't think of a very overly complicated dish with this movie because it's a little it's a lot. It was a lot to take in. I'm still kind of reeling from it.
What about just some mashed potatoes?
Probably just some plain mashed potatoes.
Yeah, no gravy, no nothing.
No
just salt and pepper.
Yeah, the version that she makes in the movie has like a bunch of like nice melty cheese. It's actually really good. But yeah, we're not making that. We're just making some nice plain toast.
It's a plain toast.
Just some dry toast, not even butter or anything.
Well, you can have some of my Jollibee spaghetti, I guess.
I don't know if I have the stomach for that much.
Oh man. Maybe just booze for this movie. Yeah, well, I wanted to talk about this one. It's maybe the hardest thing we would ever have to pair with anything.
Yeah, that was a trip.
I just really like this is I know we watched Love Lies Bleeding and I really liked that movie, and that was a contender for me for one of the best movies of this year. This movie just like rocketed to the top just because I feel like for as gross and over the top it was, everything we talked about of like it has all those nostalgic qualities of those movies that I actually do like, you know, like Reanimator and From Beyond and all these other.
I just appreciate how bold it is.
Yes.
And how unflinching it is. And it's funny because I've already come across a couple of articles since we watched this of like the naysayers, the people that didn't like it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's almost like, oh, it wasn't feminist enough because it's still like problematic with the blah 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 and all this and all that. And you know, I don't know, sometimes it's fine to have a movie that doesn't have a perfect message. It's just trying to say something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think
it's fucking art,
right? I don't think it has to be a perfect message because I don't know, in that way, like what discussion will need to be had if it was the perfect message,
right? Like
if it was an imperfect story with imperfect characters. And even the writer of the story maybe is imperfect. Kind of, who cares? They were brave enough to do this, put this out into the world. And it's something so fucking crazy. And they're so unflinching about it. I just love how bold that is.
Yeah. I love that we have this.
Yeah, exactly. At the very least, it's never boring.
No, not for 1 second. You are like on the edge of your seat trying to understand what is happening. Yeah. Like it's not maybe the most rewatchable movie, but I feel like I would rewatch this.
No, I kind of love it.
It feels like I think the last thing I'll kind of say on it almost feels like Drop Dead Gorgeous gone like just fucking.
That's funny.
Cronenberg, like if he did Drop Dead Gorgeous in a weird like Cronenbergian way or something. But
it's funny because me and my sisters have a list of movies called the Good for Her movies, where it's just women acting bad.
Oh, okay.
They're the villains and they're the cause of all of the chaos and misery that surrounds them. Like, so stuff like this fits that exactly. Gone Girl or Suspiria,
right,
or Midsommar, those kind of movies, like, good for her.
Yeah. No, makes sense.
Supporting women's rights and wrongs.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm not this is one of the rare times that after watching a movie I'm like, hey, let's go see if we get a little snack or something out of the fridge or whatever.
No, I'm good.
I just want to go take a shower.
I just want to go to bed.
I want to go to bed. Yeah.
Yes, phenomenal. Demi Moore. Honestly, I don't know that I've seen her better.
I can't think of the last thing
she's
I've
incredible.
Seen her in. She's so good.
That's true. I think maybe was it Charlie's Angels 2 that the biggest thing she's been in.
Maybe
last. I'm sure she's been in something.
I'm sure she's been in other things. We probably just haven't. Yeah.
Maybe smaller indie stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she was phenomenal, and so was Margaret Qualley, to be honest.
Yes. She almost felt like this sounds super cheesy. She felt like a clone. Like
she sold out really hard.
Like she
was
really,
incredible.
She really felt like a clone from her movements to her mannerisms to everything.
It's like kind of the lack of personality.
Yes, it did not feel like a real person.
Yeah,
it felt like
there's like nothing behind those eyes.
Yes,
and she's stunning and gorgeous, but she really sold that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I really need to go. I'm just gonna go take a shower and
I'm gonna take a quick nap.
Yeah,
that was.
No, I'm. Yeah, I hope that I don't see a commercial on television for this medication with like side effects. May include like a fucking arm that'll fall off and turn into a blood hose of blood, and diarrhea or heart palpitations or whatever. But yeah. Oh man, yeah. So what do you think?
It was great.
No snack?
I kind of no
snack tonight.
No snack. I'm good to never eat food again probably.
Okay.
After this.
All right. Well, happy New Year, everybody.
Ta-da.
Love you.